You want to be in the video? You want to say something? Meow. Say something in the video? Okay, goodbye. What's up, everyone? It's Winslow. If you're new here, welcome. Strap in. If you've been here before, welcome back. You know how these things go. There's a wave of videos and the wave of nothing. And right now, starting off a couple videos because the next project's wrapped up, and when there's no music for me to occupy myself with, gotta do the old wax philosophical in front of a camera, hoping someone's listening or watching. So thank you. Anyway, so a lot of something we producers go through, or any creatives most of the time, is that we're kind of flying blind at times. Like it's hard to step back and see where you are, or maybe what you should be doing, or just it's hard to get kind of like an outside point of view of perspective to something you're so deep into. For me at least, or for the people I've talked to, it's tough to see like your progression at times. And something I always try to like get across is being reflective and intentional, and all those nice words that, make you think when, why do I gotta think? I just wanna make bangers, foghorns, But when you're done doing that, you think about this topic of this video, which is a way to gain a bit of perspective into your musical journey, creative journey, whatever that is, by looking at someone else's, comparing and contrasting other people's journeys. And there's a bunch of ways to do it, but this way, which I'm gonna get to talk about. See, I'm just building you up. You're like, what is he gonna talk about? What is it? All it really boils down to is listening to your favorite artists, multiple discography, listening to, for example, their first release versus their most recent release, their first album versus their last album, and kind of just comparing the two. I think that's super beneficial, because through that you kind of create this timeline or this idea of a timeline in someone else's progression, and then you can relate that to yours. So say you have a producer release their first album 2007, then they just released their fifth album 2021. A lot has probably changed in all those years. They're probably basically the same as they started. Their big ideas are there. The thing that made them at that time is probably still around now, but it's more refined, it's more mature. It's all those years of experience that they didn't have in the first album got put into the fifth, and you can hear that, and you can kind of get a timeline of, okay, back in 2007 they were doing this, and now here in 2022 they're doing this thing. And if you really listen to any releases in between those times, you start connecting the dots on, okay, at this point in time, they maybe did drums like this. And then a year passed, a couple releases, they started doing drums like this. And then a couple years passed, that fifth album hits, and they sound completely different, or maybe the same, or maybe the same but different, if you want to get unnecessarily technical, I don't know, or necessarily technical. Like, the thing is, it helps give you a perspective of their progression, their timeline. Most of the time, you can't really reach out to a person, or you can, but they may not go like super in depth about what they did. Like, I would love to pick Caliber's brain, but I know like chances are I probably couldn't. We'd probably get a short conversation if I ever meet him. I hope so. Dominic, if you're watching. But I can, in a different way, just listen through his back catalog, from Music Concrete all the way up to Shelf Life 6 and what just came out, the 140. I'm gonna lose my Caliber card if I can't remember this. Anyway, so the point is, back in that Music Concrete days for Caliber, he was still Caliber, right? Like, he was soulful, funky, liquid, minimal. Not everything that needs to be there is there. Nothing that doesn't need to be there isn't. Less is more. I feel like introspective is always the vibe. Very musical. It's always there. But you can see his technical ability, or for himself, and then like the world, how the world of like production and drum and bass had changed over the 20 years. You can see that progression. It's still him, but him in Shelf Life 6, even though some of those tunes are still like 20 years old, they're refined in a way that Shelf Life 1 or Music Concrete or any of those weren't. I'm not saying they were bad, it's just that through experience, you get better. And while the main ideas, the big ideas that make up your sound were probably there in the beginning, after so many years of experience and trial and error and doing things over and over and really refining your process, things change, and hopefully for the better. And I feel like you can do that same thing for your productions. So trying this practice, think of a couple of your favorite artists. Mine, Kino, Workforce, Alex Perez, Caliber. Think about what they came on the scene with. Like Alex Perez 1984 album on Shogun isn't the same as, anything since he's become like 1985 Alex Perez, one of the top labels, most well-curated labels around right now. Like, how did that timeline happen from new guy that's just killing it back in, early 2010s to now, where he's just like on that, he's like that different level. I don't know, whatever you wanna, we talk about levels all the time, like whatever level you wanna give that, like he's the same, he's still Alex Perez, but that experience, that growth, refining his process, constantly changing with, the climate of production and whatever he wants to do, through all that experience, he's a much more, I don't know, he's different. He's new Alex Perez. He's not like that one. He's this one, He's not Alex Perez in London. He's Alex Perez in New Zealand now, whatever you want to say. So yeah, pick your favorite artists, pick a couple artists, look at how they've progressed. Listen to their early work up to their most recent work. What has changed? What has stayed the same? What's gone? What's here now? Compare and contrast. And you can be as analytical as you want. You can write it out if you want, or spreadsheet, I don't know. Or just have a general idea. Like, take the time to listen, create that sense of a timeline, sense of progression, and then kind of relate it to yourself, I just want to reiterate, because like, no matter where you are in your journey of this creative pursuit or music production, chances are, even though you may not be that experienced or that, good or have that skill set, your big ideas are there. You more than likely have always sounded like you. It's just that through experience, you've gained the skill set to really sound like you. So the big ideas were there in the beginning, but now, months, weeks, years later, you have a more refined way of doing things. So it's like concentrated your sound. It's what you want. No filler, I don't know, I'm just gonna do that because it's like, nope, this is me, this is what I do, this is the sound I want. It's intentionality. With experience comes intentionality. And even if you have the good intentions at the beginning, but your skill set doesn't really match up to your tastes, over time, they will, and you'll, be where you are. For example, breaking news has always existed in some form. Mumbles of Grace has always existed in some form. I just couldn't make them until I could make them, if that makes sense. Like, all my ideas that go into my sound, my like penchant for groove and swing, and even though that's kind of like a buzzword, an inside joke, swing, whatever. My tunes when you hear them now, right? At least I hope you do. And a few people have told me that's the only reason I'm going to go on about that, is a Winslow tune when you hear it, because I specifically want this kind of groove, and this kind of bass line, and this kind of flow, and I still want my fun, kind of goofy edge, yet production is still serious and tight, as well as I can do with my skill set at the moment, which is, again, it's constantly growing. But I couldn't make that tune until I could make that tune, The ingredients are always there. It's just that now I know how to put them together. That's my timeline. So like 2016, when I seriously started making drum and bass, everything that I do now was there back then. The groove, the lightheartedness, everything. It's just really raw and rough because I didn't have the skill set. Now, 5-6 years later, It's nothing for me to, relatively, it's nothing for me to just bang out a tune that sounds like me with little effort, because I put all that work in at one point to where now it's just second nature. It is what it is. It's me, you know? But that sound I have now was there. I just had to reveal it, you know? Back to one of my favorite artists, Kino. Like his first album was Life Cycles on Med School. It's 100% Kino, right? Now listen to I Live and Learn. I messed it up, sorry, Will. It's still 100% Kino. But if you compare the two, everything that's in I Live, I Learn was also in Life Cycles, but it's more refined. It's aged, it's mature, you know, it's not just Kino, it's Kino Noir, you know what I mean? I've been trying to work that joke into this whole thing for so long. But you get what I'm saying, like that was Kino, Life Cycles, Amens, all that stuff, beautiful strings, everything you know him for. But in I Live, I Learn, and then at Twilight, and then all his other albums. Everything that he's learned from Life Cycles up to I Live and Learn, you see that progression. You see how he was doing his drums at first. Then he started doing them this way. And then he started doing them this way. And you see how his string arrangements were at first. And then he started doing them this way. And then he started getting live strings and scoring things that, like, you know, with real musicians. You can create that timeline by listening through to his discography. And you can do that with anyone. And I feel like that's super useful. Like, one analogy I thought of is like the artist Michelangelo. And his thing was, I'm gonna read it because I can't remember the full quote while my battery is about to die. Sculpture's already complete within the marble block before I even start. It's already there. I just have to pick away at it. And I feel like you can relate that to music and production, as in what I was saying before is like, your ideas are there and you really just have to reveal them. And it takes experience to know how to reveal it. You can give me any kind of ingredient and I can probably make you a dish because I've cooked enough. But you give Gordon Ramsay those same ingredients, Wolfgang Puck, whoever else, they're gonna make you something that's so much better, that's full of experience, full of everything they know, channeled into that dish, right? So a lot of it is creating this timeline, giving yourself this perspective is what helps you kind of see your progression. And you can do this with your own music. Like, listen to anything you've made from the start. Hopefully you kept all your projects, your MP3s, everything, and then listen to something you make now, whether it's only a couple months between the two or a couple years or whatever. Compare them. Chances are you sounded like you at the beginning, but now you really sound like you now. Point is that I'm gonna just hammer home your ideas and what you want and what your, I don't know, inclinations are for music or your creative outlet. They were there. Your style was just very raw, very rough. You didn't know how to execute the ideas well, but you had the ideas, you know? Listen through your own music, look through your own creative work, how things change, what's still there, what's refined, what has matured, what isn't there at all anymore, you know? Back when I made house and trance and stuff and hard dance and all that kind of thing, you can still hear the current me in those tunes that happened 5, 6, 7 years ago, because I've always wanted a certain kind of sound, and I've always just had, like, without even putting thought into it, before all this intentionality in these videos and stuff, before I started really thinking about what I was doing, I was always just inherently doing stuff that I liked, and that was the groove, the bass line, the drive. And even though it's a different sound, trance and stuff like that, I still had the swing, I still had the character. I still made tunes that were tough to mix because I was shuffling all over the place. But it sounded like me. The ideas were rough, but they sounded like me. Hope that's making sense so far. Try it. Look at your favorite artist's work, the back catalog, up until the current stuff. Compare and contrast. See what has changed, see what's different. If you can get in touch with them, straight up ask them, you know? What have you been doing? What have you tried? What's this, you know? And I'll try to wrap it up, but another really good benefit of listening to like back catalogs and stuff is to see if you fit like on a label. Like, one thing I did when I was considering Hospital is like, how do I fit on Hospital? So what do? I listen to just about all the releases from the beginning in the back of the 90s, late 90s, all the way up to now. And I see their progression. I listen to specific artists that are or have been on Hospital or Med School or any, and I see what their trajectory was. Like, what was their first thing on hospital? What was their last thing? And what changed, compare and contrast. And how might that relate to me? Because Sandalwood Nights Winslow is a little different than Breaking News Winslow, right? And Breaking News Winslow isn't going to be the same as first album Winslow whenever that happens. But it's going to be similar, not the same. That's what I'm saying. And then 5 albums down the line, who knows? Where would I be then? So overall, it's another way of being reflective, looking at yourself, comparing yourself to others in a positive way to give yourself perspective so you may hopefully don't feel too lost in what you're doing. Like, because at times we all feel like, yo, am I going in the right direction? Am I doing the right thing? Okay, I've been at this for a couple years. What's my next step? You can really learn these things by just researching others, your favorite artists you maybe have no care about, but you want to know. Like one day I was like, The Weeknd just popped out of nowhere to me because I don't really listen to a lot of pop music, but I do pay attention because it's valuable, But I was like, how this guy come up? So I'm like on Wikipedia and looking through things. Like, he's been at it for a while. And then he kind of hit his stride. And now he's like the big guy playing the Super Bowl. But he started off small, And I like seeing that timeline to be like, oh, okay, it took him this amount of time and he did these things and these steps and look where he is. And like, what can I do to follow the same steps or a similar pathway within drum and bass or within any of my other creative outlets? Or, it's a sense of timeline, it's a sense of perspective. It helps me, just better, understand what I'm doing, I'm helping me understand myself by relating to others' stories, their journeys. And I think that could really benefit you, So consider it, try it out. Let me know what you think in the comments or messages. You always can get in touch with me. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Battery's about to die and the cat's yelling at me. So one of those things has to be handled soon. Anyway.